Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Atheist Round Table. We have a special guest with us tonight. We have Susan and Nathaniel from Divine Disbelief. How are you guys doing tonight?
Good.
Pretty wonderful.
Yeah, we're doing great. How are you?
Great, very good, very good. I'm in Indiana. We had our first sunny and beautiful day today. So I got a little sun, got some lawn work done that needed to be done desperately. So
Nice.
doing good. And then, as always, here at the round table, my co-host, the Atheist Jesus, Mr. Mike.
What's up? How you guys doing?
Hey,
What's up, Mike? Always good to have you, my brother. And
Good.
then-
Hopefully it's not super delayed. If it is, I apologize.
Nope, it's actually looking good.
Yeah. Catching up.
And then my name is Austin, and again, for those that tune in each week, each episode, first of all, thank you. You guys are the rock stars, and looking forward to great conversations again tonight. And we have a cram-packed week next week. I'll be putting a schedule out for more guests next week, so stay tuned for that. And also, we have some merch coming. We have some shirts we've been designing to get in your guys' hands, and some of them are sarcastic and funny. Other ones are more brand related for the round table. So before we jump into the show, we have a special little segment here, and Nathaniel would like to present Susan a couple gifts for a certain holiday coming up here in a few days. Nathaniel, you want to tell us about it?
Yeah, so May 4th is Star Wars Day.
Yay!
And Susan, of course, you can see she actually has a little Chewbacca shirt on. And last year, she collects these little Funko Pops. And you guys saw a little bit ago, it's a Yoda, so it doesn't work really well with the green screen.
No.
But the first one that I got her, really as a gift last year, was a special edition Boba Fett one. And so Star Wars Day is Monday.
Yeah.
And there's not a convention or anything this year. And there's nothing. And so decided to get her a couple little things anyways.
Yay.
And they arrived early. And so she's going to.
I'm doing this one first.
Yeah. So,
Awesome. Let's have some fun.
yeah.
Because I said I'm doing this one first. Wow.
Yeah. I forgot which ones they are. Just going to let you know. Oh, yeah. Okay, I remember now. Yeah.
Death Watch Mandalorian.
You have to put it up so they can see it, because otherwise
That's sweet.
Okay.
There's a reflection, but I can see it. It looks awesome.
Yeah, you get to watch the reflection there.
Ooh,
Yep, that's an
EB Games
exclusive one. Yeah.
Very nice.
Well, yeah, I figure Star Wars Day, you should get the exclusive ones.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly.
They were not incredibly easy to find.
You done good, baby.
Thanks.
I don't even know what this one is, and I know you done good.
Oh no, I can't remember now. Like, God, I think it's
Oh, it's in another box.
It's a box in a box.
It's another box.
What do they call those Russian what dolls?
Nesting dolls.
There it is. I always forget that one.
How do
I don't know. It's a box. Oh yeah.
Oh,
I was
yes!
talking about one of these guys earlier.
He was mentioning they have all sorts of the Knights of Ren.
Yeah, it's
Which,
reflected.
it's a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
Very cool.
That is from Rise of Skywalker. She's got I think 3 or 4 of those now.
Yes.
A bunch of them. So
Excited.
the collection that we have, we've finished. I think we have every single. Well, we're missing one, which is Yoda at his house from the 40th anniversary of Empire,
Mhm.
and I think we're just missing 2. I think now from the Rise of Skywalker edition.
Yeah.
So pretty hefty collection at this point.
Yeah, we probably have a good 125.
Yeah, we definitely do.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it's
Kind of obsessed.
It's a nice little hobby.
Yeah.
But, and Nathaniel looks like you did a good job. She's got a big smile
He
on her
did.
face. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. That's
Thank you, babe.
That's the thing. We talk about them, and I know what they mean and what they are and how much they're worth now, only because of her. When I got her the Funko Pop last year, it was the 2019 edition, and I got it in May. But at the same time as the conventions and everything, I had no idea how how rare it was. I just picked it up, and I was like, here's $10, and then I took it to her, and well,
I was like, oh my god!
Yeah, and so since then, it's just
freaking out.
she's got a huge, enormous Millennium Falcon and stuff now. So
That one's
Yeah.
legit.
it's pretty cool stuff.
Very cool. Awesome.
Thanks for letting us do that there on the air.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
no,
no.
that's awesome. Thank you.
That was awesome. That was awesome, and I can definitely tell you both enjoy that together. Huge smiles. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, baby.
You're welcome.
Very cool. Very cool. So before for those that listen, on the round table, we kind of have a format that we go through each time, and really for consistency purposes. That way, everybody, we're we take the same direction and have the same conversations, and it's always going to kind of sprout out because every story is different. Everybody has their own story, but we have the three main questions that we go through. But before we dig into that, Susan, Nathaniel, if you don't mind, I always like to start with some get to know you questions, just some basic get to know you questions. That way, again, Mike and I can get to know you a little better, and more importantly, the listener can get to know you a little better. So you don't have to be specific, but just give us an idea. What area you grew up in, and where you're from, that kind of thing.
It's like,
Yeah.
I can go first.
She's better at this than I am.
So I was born and raised in Texas. Did not leave Texas and as a move until about a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
Born in South Texas, lived in Austin for a couple of years, loved Austin. Austin is
Absolutely
an amazing place, and moved in
so much in common.
I know, right?
I just threw that across the room. Sorry. Go ahead, love.
We're good.
Fine.
It didn't break.
It's not broken.
Bunko
It's
down.
Corel.
Which is
It's
the
Corel,
first
so it
for
didn't
me.
break.
I saw nothing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Lived in DFW for probably almost 3 years, and
Sounds
that's where we
right.
met.
Yep.
We actually met at a protest.
Yeah. Protest of a
funnily enough.
church.
Yeah, protesting in front of First Baptist Dallas, where Robert
Yeah.
Jeffress is pastor.
Yeah. That was fun.
Yeah, I've always been a really big nerd. Like, I've loved Star Wars since I was a kid, obviously. But I don't know. I'm a big nerd, big dork. I love really nerdy things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. And we live in Portland now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oregon, not Maine.
Yeah,
So
or
if anybody
Texas.
wants to get those confused, we're in the rainy one. And since I have no idea how much it rains in Maine, that
Yeah, no
rhymes.
idea.
I was, God, I've been everywhere. So I was born in Alaska because my father was in the military, and you can't really decide where you're born, I guess. And then moved to Nebraska and was raised there. So I guess that makes more sense for people now if anybody likes sports. And then my mom, I became a Christian when I was 13 or 14. And then my mom moved us down to Southeast Texas. So, I guess mom hated us, which makes sense, I guess. And
That's fair.
went
That's
to school
fair.
there, and I went off to the military and did that, that action for a few years, and moved around a little bit, Kansas City, back to Lincoln, Nebraska, and then eventually back down to Texas and lived in Dallas again, pretty much almost the exact amount of time that Susan did.
Yeah.
And we met each other, so the Roomba's going in the background if you hear that. by the way.
Sorry in advance.
It's a common thing. It's our roommates know we're going to stream, and so they turn the Roomba on.
Exactly.
Certain it's on purpose. No, not really. And yeah, we met at a protest of a church. One of the protests that we didn't organize. There were a couple others that we did organize. They were also at churches. And I'm really involved in politics and stuff. And I worked for Beto O'Rourke down in Texas when he ran for Senate 2 years ago. So, and then Susan helped out with that. And that was I think more than anything else, how we really connected there.
Bonded.
Yeah.
Yes.
she was there for me, and then it just really just kind of worked out.
Yeah.
For us. And then we figured everything out last year, and then figured we weren't going to stay in Dallas-Fort Worth forever. Did not want to, and narrowed it down to a few places. One of those places was Finland. So that was, a long shot, but ended up I visited Portland in early 2017, loved it here. And so this is where we came. And of course now everything's all just crazy. But
Yeah. Everything's basically closed down. So it's like,
yeah,
we'll get to experience it one day.
yeah. But it's what's great is that we're here, and she showed up like 3 weeks after I did.
Yeah.
And so our stuff got here, most of it, and
About 3 weeks after that.
Yeah. Been great. And what's really great is that all the time that we've been like together, we've never spent this much time together, and it has been phenomenal.
Yeah.
So I guess if there's any like silver lining out of all this,
a lot of other couples are just all like, I just need time away from you, or like, I'm going absolutely bonkers. And I don't know, I enjoy your company a great deal. You don't drive me bonkers.
I like yours a lot.
That's a plus. It's a plus. I'm very,
I
very
like
glad.
yours a lot. And I mean, she's gorgeous. So if you're going to spend time with anybody.
Well, it's my girlfriend and I, we purchased a home right when all this really started to like pop off, and I tell her all the time, actually the timing couldn't have been, I mean, it's sad, it's tragic what has happened, how many lives have been lost because of it, but as far as how our personal lives have been affected, we're in the same boat. We love being together.
Mm-hmm.
And so we move in starting a new life, a new home together. I have 4 children. She has 2, from previous relationship, and it was perfect. And for us, it was perfect. So I'm in the same boat as you guys, where we see people complain all the time, like, God, I wish my husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend would get the hell out of my house. Where we're like, can we just stay here? Can we just keep doing this?
Yeah.
It's been great.
Yeah.
And we've got the 2 corgis,
Mm-hmm. And a cat.
Who is something else.
She's how much can I curse on this channel?
I cuss like a sailor, so
good. So my cat's an ornery bitch. So
okay.
Something else.
My cat's an asshole. But I've got a giant tattoo of her on my arm. I don't know how well you can see it, but it's fine.
Yeah,
best $600 I ever spent. So
Yeah, I say I'm actually highly allergic to cats, but they had my girlfriend and her 2 kids had 2, but she's got a great air filtering system, so they don't bother my allergies. So
that's smart.
And they call the black cat that we have, they call it the devil.
Nice. Nice.
So I can relate. So jumping into the format and the regular content with you guys. So and what I would ask is each of you on this part goes share your own story on this. That way we can hear from both of you, and whoever wants to go first, that you guys can decide that. But share with us, take 5 minutes or so, and just kind of give us your story, your life story, your background, and what has transpired and what has got you to where you're at today. And then at the end, share your worldview as it stands today. And then following that, we'll talk about how you got there and then the why. So take the time you need, but share that with us, please.
You should go first. Yours is a lot more interesting than mine.
It's really not.
So you say.
No, it's really not. Literally, I mean, because so I have, let's see. So I've been an atheist about 10 years now. So I think it's 10 years. I was kind of remarking on that in the pre-show, and I was like, what was I doing in 2009? I was watching Nebraska actually beat Texas.
Or 2010.
I don't, yeah. And then and I was like, well, maybe, sure. 10 years ago. Why not? I can't, I don't have Facebook anymore, so I can't try and find the post where I came out on the internet, But I was a Christian, evangelical Christian, for a good part of my teenage and young adult life, even into like the military and everything. And it was actually a bet from people when I was in the Navy. They would try to get me to cuss, and it was never difficult because it's like those things. Like I never say any kind of like racist slurs because it's not in my vernacular and it's not something I would ever say. So it's like, oh, you're trying to get me to cuss. I don't even know which words to use. So I had that one. I didn't listen to anything but like Christian music and all that stuff. And I was that kind of guy, and very
Toby
evangelical.
Toby Mac.
Oh yeah, Toby Mac all the time. And I got out of the military, and then actually went and became a youth pastor down in Florida for a little while. I didn't receive like any seminary or anything. And so I didn't realize that, I mean, when I was in church in Kansas City, I took some classes that, like leadership and stuff like that for church leadership, but nothing kind of seminary. Otherwise, I would have known how much of like a business it really is and how much it's like getting more people into the church so that then they can have more money so that the church can stay open. And I was like, I don't think Jesus ever had that problem. So, I mean, sure, he was walking around or whatever, but that was never on the docket. And so I had a difference of opinion with the pastor there, and we parted on good terms. But I was still a Christian at that point too, because that was just like the mid 2000s, and went off, and then I went into like college and stuff, and I realized in college that I have a personal way of thinking, which is I'm very, very, very detailed, very critical thinking, and which is why I've said that college teaches students how to think, not how to think, but rather how to think, and it's very critical thinking, and that's one reason that evangelicals are not a big fan of liberal arts colleges, and that for me was eye-opening because the only thing I didn't like think about, right, was this whole religion thing. And even though I'd been a youth pastor, even though I've been in the religion, even though I knew it, and I think you remarked that you actually watched our video from the other night, I know the stuff pretty well, and but I had never studied it like I do now, and so I started to do that. And that was really difficult for me because I started to realize that first off, hey, none of this other stuff is true, which is great if you're a Christian, but also that includes Christianity. And I probably knew that I didn't believe, because I became like a liberal type of Christian where maybe the Bible's not inerrant, but like a Mike Lacona type Christian. It doesn't change the perfect message, and then, but I was kind of like lying to myself, I think, without trying to. And then one night I just kind of figured it out and literally yelled at the sky, because you spend that much time of your life that's involved in my formative years, and that was it for me. And then since then, it's become I didn't actually really get involved until 2015. So like 5 years until I became involved in activism, church-state separation, American Atheists, and I got her involved in that too.
Yeah.
And then really getting into like scholarship and learning the things they don't teach you in church, not just the foundations of Christianity or the actual beliefs, because I don't really care about the theology, but the actual critical scholarship. And so that's some of the stuff that people see when we talk today. So that's really where I'm at right now, just really learning more about the foundations of the religion more than actually like inside of it type stuff.
Very good. Yeah, Nathaniel, thank you for definitely for sharing that. And yeah, you and I have a lot in common. And the one point that you made, that you said it, and I was like, holy shit! I literally remember standing in a parking lot and doing that when you said, I looked up in the sky and just started screaming.
Yeah.
To some people, they'd be like, okay, so you're probably just insane, right? But you get to the point where it's like, I really believe this and I've invested my life in this, and now all of a sudden all of this is crumbling. Yeah. And they've taught you that Sky Daddy is the one that programs all this. So guess where you look? You look at the sky and you scream.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I can totally relate. So Susan, if you don't mind, real quick, just a few questions or points with Nathaniel real quick, that way I don't forget.
Yeah.
So Nathaniel, you shared at 13 years old, That's when your conversion happened, right around there. Is that correct?
Yeah, I had a girl invite me to church, so
Okay.
that's how they get you.
What did that your conversion to Christianity? What did that look like?
It for me, because really kind of like raised Methodist, and in the Midwest, that's basically like, you go to church every Sunday, and but it didn't actually really ever mean anything. And so, and I also had like family issues and stuff like that, where our family wasn't very close, and so would when I got invited to this church, it was an evangelical, like almost Pentecostal church. It was an Assemblies of God in O'Neill, Nebraska. And while that girl and I never got together, which disappointing at the time, I experienced like people that were really happy to be there, happy to see me and stuff. And I wondered like why, and didn't ever wonder if it was true, right? Because you kind of raised like that. But and it was, for me, it was like a no-brainer. The first time that I heard things you don't hear in Methodist church, I heard about this like salvation thing, and that for me was very easy, because if these folks had that, and these are the people that I truly actually trusted, that just makes sense. So it was quick and easy.
Okay, so another, because when you say evangelical, that's how I grew up. So no oil slinging or speaking in tongues or any of that.
Oh no, it was speaking in tongues. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was underneath the Pentecostal bubble, right? So you have 20 million folks that exist underneath the Pentecostal denomination, even if they don't qualify as Pentecostal, across the world, and I was one of those. Assemblies of God is Pentecostal because it's apostolic, and so yeah, speaking in tongues and translating and fill the Holy Ghost, all that stuff. Yep, believed all that was true. So all people that try to tell me I wasn't a true Christian, golf.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was just sharing with Mike and a couple of our other atheist buddies last night that the church I grew up in, that my mom was a music pastor at, we literally, whether it was on a monthly or bi-monthly basis, we saw the likes, behind the pulpit. We saw the likes of Lester Summerall, Kenneth Copeland, Rod Parsley, Michael Pitts. Like you run all those, Pentecostal evangelical names down the list. Like I grew up in that madness, and guess what? I believed it was true.
Yeah. When I went to the Navy, we had a school down at NATC, Naval Air Technical Training Center in Pensacola, Florida. Wow, remember that?
Very nice.
And that was like at the end of the Pentecostal, the Pensacola Pentecostal revival.
Yep.
If anybody is aware of that, so I actually got to go to that church, and that was, at the time, that was super cool.
At the time.
Yeah, well, you think back on it now, and it's like, oh gosh, I do not identify with any of those people. And but it was, you go in there and these things would be hours long. And I was at that church. I probably spent more time at that church than I did actually doing things when I first got in the Navy. And then 9/11 happened, so that changed. But so that's, I did all of that. Believed every bit of it, and Kenneth Copeland, we know him.
I mean, not personally.
Yeah, no, I met somebody that works for him though.
I got suggested a Kenneth Copeland Ministries job on LinkedIn.
Yeah, he was like right up the street from us.
Yeah, he was in Fort Worth.
Yeah, in Fort Worth, but we had there was a pastor over in Louisiana who ended up becoming an atheist, and he came and spoke at our church in Orange, Texas, a community church. And he's an atheist now. I forget what his name is, but he leads an atheist church in Louisiana. And so we had some of that that would happen as well. And man, it's the fact that I'm like, these little memories come back, you're like, oh man, that's stuff that used to happen. So
I'm sure another time you and I could exchange some pretty amazing stories.
Yeah.
So the one thing, and this is more just for fun, but you mentioned Christian music.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom being a music pastor for 20 something years, and obviously all my childhood and teenage years, I was inundated with music of all sorts, under the Christian umbrella. And she actually wrote and produced 3 Christian contemporary albums. So really? I lived in a studio with Christian music.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know if you remember Kent Henry. You remember that name?
Don't remember that one. No.
Okay. He was a national artist, and he was that real, what I call now, really depressing worship music.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I'm absolutely worthless, and the only way I am worthy is through you, and blah.
And
blah.
if I listen to it today, I literally want to slip my wrist. I'd rather listen to, the darkest, nastiest secular music than that shit.
Secular music,
but secular.
Secular.
Yeah, I threw out all my secular CDs. So yeah.
Oh, you remember those where you throw or you burn them? You remember that?
Yeah, I went to Acquire the Fire.
Oh God,
that was a Ron Luce thing. Yeah.
Yes.
By the way, all that shit's shut down now. And that was where that was when I really that was the turning point for me, and that was early 2001. That was my boom. That was January 2001 was when I became more than like just a going to church type Christian. It became I Kissed Dating Goodbye, right? And I didn't read The Case for Christ until like 2004 or something. But also that one never resonated with me because it just didn't make sense. Turns out
you don't like Strobel? You're not a fan of Strobel?
Strobel has yet to block me on Twitter, but what's his name? I don't have enough faith. Turek has. I went to one of those, and that's when I really became like that. And it was like throw away all of your CDs, and like not going to kiss a girl for like a year or something like that, and like all of this stuff. Yeah, it was like you got to get in with Jesus and all that, And then I realized like why people that would that went to school, they'd be like fasting for 5 days. I realized what that was now. Looking back, that's not healthy. So like all of this stuff, and I realized that point, and then from then on until to like that 9-10 years, that was who I was, like every single day. So it was
I completely forgot about Ron Luce and Acquire the Fire. My parents made me go every single year, and it's funny. It's ironic that you brought that up because just last night on that phone call that I was on with Mike and a couple of other guys, we're talking about crazy Christian shit, and I told him, I said the funniest shit I ever heard at like a youth camp or event or whatever is Ron Luce. I don't remember the lady's name, but he had this lady come in. She was talking about teenage purity and blah blah blah, all that. And then she was like, and girls, if he tries to touch you, you tell him no ringy, no dingy.
Yeah.
And I was like,
this is a black lady. I remember that. That was like early 2000s. I remember. Yeah, she was like, because Kurt Warner came to one of those.
Yep.
They were like, oh yeah, this at Super Bowl winning, I'm like, oh look, it's Kurt Warner. He's a Christian. Christianity's true. I'm like, wow, that doesn't make sense these days. Because think of all look, it's the vice president. I'm like, wow, he's just the correct version of Christianity, isn't he? So like things you wouldn't think as a child or like a young adult or somewhere in there. And it's like, man, you look back at this stuff. They were productions too. The whole 2 or 3 days of stuff. And they literally they had like stage lights, this whole production of stuff. They had like indoor fireworks and everything. Yeah, and then like bands and stuff were there. It was real. And I was like, yes.
Yeah, it was definitely an event. It wasn't circled around God. Now I look back at it. It was an event to make money.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then last point, I guess, or not point, comment I'll make, and then I'll let Mike jump in if he has any comments or questions. Because you talked about when you were challenged, as far as really studying, your faith, your religion that you were tied to. I can tell you it's the same thing happened to me.
Yeah.
So I did all kinds of stuff in church. I was in a Christian band. We opened up for Flyleaf. Then I was in a Christian hip hop group. We opened up for Truth, Tripoli,
Nice.
Lecrae. So I've been exposed to all of that. I've done the events. Done all the hype, all that. But guess what? Is all the Christian music that I wrote back then? Sat down, put pen to paper. I really didn't know that much. I just really regurgitated what I've been told and what I've been taught.
Yeah.
Then when I started to, without giving my entire story, when I really started to really question it, and then like, oh wow, I don't really know. Maybe I should actually open this book up for myself.
Yeah.
And start to study it. That's when it blew up. And now my current stance is today, and Christians fucking hate it when I say this, but the average atheist, and I'm just going to talk middle of the line. The average atheist studies the Bible abundantly more than the average Christian.
Yeah.
And that I will say, people say, well, back it up. Well, then let's line up 100 Christians, 100 atheists, and I'll prove to you that we study that book more than you do. And like, well, then why aren't you Christians? Because we want to expose the dogma and the manipulation and the bullshit, because we were trapped in it,
Yeah.
So I wanted to highlight that, because that's something that I share, again, a common ground I share with you, where it just gets to the point where it's like, no, I want to know it so I can fight it. It has nothing to do with it. I want to believe in it. It's, I need to know it so I can fight it. So if you have any comments on that, if not, I'll pass it off to Mike.
Important to note, and I said this the other night too, atheists don't know very much either. It's not difficult to know more than the vast majority of, especially American Christians, and more than anything else, even American evangelicals.
Yeah.
And
That's true.
because I did that the other night, I can't do the atheist monolith of this dogmatic position that Jesus of Nazareth never existed, and they have no idea why, for the most part, or they regurgitate things, they parrot people. And I'm like, Richard Carrier's wrong. Stop it. And so, but yeah, I experienced that. How many times people come in? I do a live stream on Periscope, which is run by Twitter. And how many times people come in that are Christians, and I know more about them, about the Bible than they do. And I know more about the history of the religion than they do. And that is one of the reasons that I do that, and that we do that. It's also to let them know, go read these things, go look this stuff up. Never take anything that I'm saying for granted.
Yeah.
And I've had some really great conversations with people just based on that, because they think the atheist is just somebody that hates God.
Yep.
Like I've seen God's Not Dead. That was after I
We
became
are
an atheist.
not Kevin Sorbos.
And all of that stuff, and so I've actually had some really great conversations with people. And I was talking to Spartan Theology last week.
Yeah.
And he's a Christian, and he had no idea what I was talking about. When talking about Jesus never claimed to be God and stuff like that, and he went through and did some research, and then came on the video yesterday, I think. It's like, does the Bible say Jesus is God? And I'm like, that's not what I said. So we're gonna, he and I are gonna have a conversation about that. But even he was like, wow, I've never heard these things before. So I think that's one of the main reasons that I still do it. It's just so interesting to me. I think it's because I grew up with it, and that it means so much to me that it's like that or sports, which I'm not playing sports. So which one do you want?
Yep. No, that's awesome. And I could go on for days, so I'm going to shut the hell up. Mike, do you have any comments or questions?
Yeah. Well, we know Ethan, Spartan Theology. He's actually in the Discord. I'd be kind of side note. I'd be interested in seeing you two hang out the Discord and have conversations with them. With people on there. There's a lot of theists, a lot of atheists. But I wanted to ask you guys, this goes to either one of you. Did you use arguments like the ontological or cosmological? Were as a theist, were you in that kind of a realm, or like how did you back your belief up at the time?
You? No? Okay.
Oh, I didn't argue about anything.
It's actually rather amazing to me how many Christians also don't know what the hell that means. It's actually a very small number of people that have ever even heard of like William Lane Craig, and certainly have ever heard of like Anselm or something of that nature. And we just experience it a lot because obviously we have these conversations. Your everyday Christian has not heard of those. And I am by brain type a methodological naturalist. So these abstract ideas of ontological or even the greatest maximal beings and all those things now, they don't hold any weight with me at all, because even if they were to get to point A, you still got a hell of a long way to go to get to your God. So and I don't think they get there anyways, but also I'm not a philosopher. Philosophy is philosophy because it's this abstract type of mentality. I deal in naturalist stuff. And that's where there's like this science and stuff that I've done for a very long time comes in. And so if it's not something that's, and I love how she says that.
I always forget what the fourth one is. Repeatable, testable, falsifiable, and can be measured.
Makes predictions.
Makes predictions. Damn it! I never get the last one right.
That's the basics of like your basic scientific theory. If it doesn't make predictions, it's not a scientific theory. And so creationism, you're not. And so if it's not based in that, it doesn't even matter to me. So
sweet. So I think we just your answer alone is. I try not to put myself into it, but it's exactly on par with how I think. So I was curious if you perceived the Bible as it being self-evident at the time. Did you have concepts of independent verification? Like, did that exist to you as a theist? Or how did that work for you? So like that you wouldn't even know about it being circular or anything like that.
No, the idea of logical fallacies does not permeate the Christian church. We know that. We experience that every day.
Yeah.
And so, no, you're in this insulated bubble, or I was at least, where the only things that you ever hear are the constant. I can still tell you today what the verses are, right? How you get to, Acts chapter 2, Acts chapter 4, 5:37, and all these things, Romans 6:13 and then 16:19, although I can still do that because it's like whenever I give Nebraska's national championships, 70, 71, 94, 95, 97, it's just because of that indoctrination, you never hear anything else. And so it's just, what?
That's the only time I've ever heard you refer to your Nebraska fandom as indoctrination.
Oh, it is. It's a fucking.
I understand it because I'm a huge fantasy sports player. So I've been a huge fantasy football player for the last 8 years or so. So football for me, it's the same with players where I'm just like, oh yeah, Christian McCaffrey, and then just listing off stats or whatever. Just like, he won me a champion $600, So
sure.
And just the other night, well, I guess it was a week or two ago, we did like an after party on here on one of our episodes, and Mike and a couple of guys were on there. We were talking about indoctrination and how even like speaking in tongues is a learned behavior. It's something that's programmed, and like my mom forced it. It was like, no, you don't really understand the Holy Spirit and the Spirit of God until you have a prayer language. And I told the guys that night, I was like, look, it's been years now since I've been in that setting, ever done it. Watch this. It's memorized.
Yep.
I still know it. And I did it that night on here, just to prove a point. Like it's not a special language. Like, don't get it fucking twisted. It's something that's memorized and programmed, and it is what it is. It's indoctrination. Yeah.
And it also doesn't follow Acts chapter 2 at all either, because it's very specific. And even whenever Paul talks about it, this is how you realize like how non-biblical this bullshit is. The people picking up snakes, that wasn't even in the book of Mark. That's the only place that's found. And this thing where this is the upper room stuff where the Holy Spirit comes in and they start speaking in different tongues, but they're tongues that the people around them recognize.
Yeah.
And so
they always sound the exact same too. Like they start the exact same.
It's Babel.
Yeah.
is what it is. Which makes, I thought they tore that shit down. Whatever, they didn't. And so whenever people do it, yeah, I know it's like the, Rashad to die thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can fucking do it right now.
Yeah.
Like and it's, trust me, I don't believe in God. I just did it. And all you're doing is just ticking and tacking and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I believed it was real when I did it.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
We're gonna have a montage of just so many different ex-theists saying exactly what you said. It's funny because they all give the same response.
And all of them talking in tongues at some point.
Yeah. Have people that know me right now trying to get them to believe that too. Because I have such a different mentality, and the way that I go about things is so, again, methodological and stuff. Like, how the did you believe this? And I'm like, I was a teenager, a girl invited me there, and then I had never had any type of family like that, so that was really easy. And
Sure.
So it was like,
it's shika bahai, passing the devil by.
Yep.
Anything else?
So I asked those two questions just the off the bat because we are in a Discord where they're like Spartan and guys like that who do kind of look into these concepts, and I don't want to throw him under the bus, but just theists in general, I guess, that are on the Discord, where they'll argue from whether they're an idealist or a dualist or all those types of those concepts. I wanted to know what your opinion might be on. Do you think those are kind of linguistic traps and more so abilities with how you can conceive things? How do you look at that? How do you tear apart that type of argumentation and from your perspective?
If they had evidence, they'd have given it to us by now.
Sure.
And so these are simply word games, and that's it. Now it's the same thing. We're making a video responding to Inspired Philosophy and how he tries to defend the Lucan census, and it's just stuff taken out of context. It's video clips. You're talking about he gets a scholar from the 1890s.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, somebody has said this before, right? But this is 120 years ago, and so it's a word game that is. You say game, it's not meant to. It's not in my opinion, anyways. It's not an insult to say that, but that's all it is, because there is a lack of actual evidence. It's the reason that whenever I debate people when it comes to the resurrection of Jesus, the reason they try to flip it around and try to say, well, you have to prove something else. I don't got to prove shit. But the reason why is because they understand there's no evidence for this stuff. It's not to say that Jesus didn't exist, but the reason that they make those ontological arguments and the cosmological arguments and the way that they have to continue to update the cosmological arguments, it just shows that that they're playing from the back end, right? Sure. And because of that, it becomes a philosophical nightmare.
Sure.
Where I'm like, I don't have to try to defend some weird ass philosophy. You have to provide me evidence. And
it's that whole burden of proof thing.
And
it's not on us.
Because again, philosophy, even if it were able to say that there's no other answer except for this being a deity. Okay, cool. Now show it's yours. Not only choose your religion. We live in the United States, so obviously, it's Christianity, but show that it's yours. I will grant you your ontological bullshit. Show me it's yours, because you have to that. And I've said that before, and then that's where the conversation ends, because they know that there is no word game to get from deity to Yahweh Elohim, because there's not one. You can't show it. It's just belief. Cool. There you go. He's done things for you. Happy for it. I'm glad that's why you believe. If you think that's a good reason, good for you. I don't. And it's not evidentialism, so it doesn't work. So I got out of the philosophy nonsense as soon as I got into it.
Sure. And I think for me, it's from at least my friends that are philosophy majors, they're always look, in philosophy, you either have to when you find errors after a counter argument, you either have to throw it away or revise it. And he's like, but the problem is that it's always a revise. It's never like a let me throw this belief away because it doesn't make any sense. It's always just a let me revise it and keep revising it.
It becomes such a dogmatism as well. We were talking last week with somebody, actually an apologist that I had a certain amount of respect for, and then come to find out that he doesn't accept basic science when it comes to evolutionary theory. And I was like, wow, I don't respect you anymore.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to the only reason, and I was mentally with the bad guy in the situation. I was like, dude, what? The only reason that happens is because of his religion. It would not be the case otherwise. Such dogmatism. And the same thing happens with those that are, in the atheistic side, that are dogmatic with, these ideas of Jesus never existing and stuff. You're right. There's this, if it were not for this certain presupposition that I have, I wouldn't hold this position. And that becomes the difficult part of removing ourselves from indoctrination because of the presuppositions that we automatically have over whether it be immediate because we're mad at something, or over the course of time because that's all that we hear inside of an insular bubble. And
sure.
now it's you look at things and you're like, she can do this. I can predict the next thing people are going to say. Like I already know when I'm involved in conversations with apologists or just everyday Christians. I can already tell you the next thing they're going to say. I can predict, and I'm like, look, I'm a fucking prophet.
It's very formulaic a lot of the time. Like they only have certain things that they say in order to make these arguments, and they don't expand on stuff because I think a lot of them are so used to not being challenged or people not knowing how to challenge them. So that's why I don't get into arguments, is because I'm fully aware of how ill-equipped I am to get into like arguments about pretty much anything except for reproductive justice stuff. That's the only thing that I can really get into arguments about.
She knows more than she thinks she does. But the reason why it's always the same thing is because it's a script that's given to them. It's not studied. It's memorized. And with that means that if all we do are take, it was just kind of funny because these are the things we say about Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons, and they come knock on the door or whatever, which we haven't had any here. You think you'd have Mormons here. Well, never mind. Coronavirus. Sorry, guys. What? And yet it's the exact same thing. It's very formulaic. It's very scripted when it comes to the things, because they have the books that are given to them, the apologetic stuff, which I've read. I have some right there. I read them on purpose. And so we already know that stuff. And so, but with me, or when it comes to something where we're actually then critically looking at something, which is what we should be doing, in my opinion, with literally everything. We find out more and more, continuing to study with stuff instead of being given more and more scripts. We end up creating our own belief and value systems, and that makes us more, I think, complete than just following a robotic script that is no different again than the people that knock on my door and tell me that I shouldn't get a blood transfusion because I'll go to hell, or drink caffeine because I'll go to hell. And I'm like, first off, both are great. So I'm and then you have no reason not to, and tell me why, and I already know what you're going to say type stuff. No, bring me something that's actually studied and that you can have a formulate an idea, because they always
intellectually honest conversation.
Yeah, they always think I'm trying to trap them too. And
the big thing is attacking naturalism and saying, well, here's why it's flawed, and it's like you just don't understand what it is and why. The null hypothesis is a huge process of, look, I'm not going to be convinced of anything until it gets to where it's not about just having evidence either. It's about having sufficient evidence. Like people don't understand these concepts of having actual standards of them.
Yeah, I get that.
And now, because they're so ass hurt for not having true evidence, for their claim. Like I saw, I don't remember who it was, but well, I wouldn't call them out on the show anyway. But on our Discord, it was like actually naturalism is founded within Judeo-Christian belief.
What would that even matter? What would that even matter?
like what? Like how far are we going to start reaching now, guys?
Yeah.
Let's just keep.
Just like the person was Christian, who is that what they're saying? Like, what are they saying?
Well, I'm still trying to look into it. It just happened like hours ago. So
yeah,
I haven't, but the fact that I even read it, like that was their justification to minimize atheism. And this is what, and Mike, you know this about me. I was just drilled down to two things. One, atheism is a lack of belief. Like you can do all your word spaghetti and word salad and do like you can do all that and have fun with it. Like if that makes you feel good and feel smart, good for you. So that's first and foremost. Second of all, you have a claim that a God exists. Prove your claim.
Yeah.
Just justify your claim. And if you can do that, it doesn't mean I'm going to serve your God because I still think your God's a bloodthirsty, narcissistic psycho. I'm still not going to serve him. But but if you can give me proof that he's real, I'll acknowledge he's real. That doesn't mean I'm going to serve him. You know, and that's where, you know, on the Discords and other conversation, you know, we get in all this, you know, I call it blah, blah, blah. Because that in its simplest form, that's what it is. That's all I hear when you're talking, you know, when we get into all the philosophical debates and it's like, cool. All that shit's really fucking cool. Like, and I love to study, I love to learn. But at the end of the day, when we drill it all the way down, is your God real? You say yes, prove it.
Yeah.
Prove it.
Yep. And they always say, they ask me anyway. So, well, what kind of evidence are you looking for? My response is always, what you got?
Yeah, anything.
We'll go from there.
Yeah.
What you got, and if you don't have it, then that God that created everybody, he should know what I need to be able to prove it.
That's what I say.
Yep.
Yeah.
It ends up coming
I've actually met them halfway in the middle in terms of like, well, you know, what if they wrote the name in the stars, you know, in every language or something? I'm like, sure, I would accept that because that it's not happening, you know, and like I have no problem accepting that because we live in a world where it's crazy. Like, think about it. We're having to use this crazy hypothetical. Would you accept this hypothetical that hasn't happened? It's like, sure, just call me when it happens because it's not happening. That's the issue, you know.
Yep. All right. So I'm gonna jump in because I want to make sure we talk to Susan. So
she's got it.
So Susan,
I mean, I might not have as much to say.
so Susan, well, believe me, and I'm learning. I think Nathaniel is cut from the same cloth as Mike and I. As we can probably take a small subject and run for days with it, and dissect it and talk about it. But I want to make sure that you get to share your story and your perspective. So again, just as a refresher, reminder, you know, however much you do or don't want to share, but kind of how you grew up as far as religion and all that, and then how you got to where you're at today.
Sure. So I was born into an Episcopalian church, which is, I'm sure pretty much everybody's familiar with Episcopalians, but it's branched off from the Anglican Church, which is when, you know, Henry VIII was all like, I want to get a divorce. And the Catholic Church was all like, no, all right, I'm starting my own church. It's basically just Catholicism light. So it's got a lot of the same rituals as Catholicism and everything. So there's like, I still know like the Nicene Creed and shit like that. And I'm just all like, oh God, why do I still know these? Y'all are talking about like indoctrination. Like it's like with the Lord's Prayer. Like I imagine we can all still recite the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
Like because it, you know, will never change. It's just a matter of how you pronounce trespasses. Or transgressions, which one you say. It all depends. When I was about 14, I started going to a Methodist church, which it was the first church that I had that I really found friends at. I was a very awkward child. I didn't have a lot of friends. Wasn't really bullied. I was just kind of left alone. My family has never really been very close. So I was a very, very lonely child. So I, you know, when I started going to church, you know, these people were much like Nathaniel was saying, they were very excited to see me. And, when I came back, they're just like, oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. We're so excited that you're back. And they just always seemed so genuinely happy. And it was this community that I couldn't find at school because I didn't have any friends at school. I couldn't find my family because we didn't talk about anything. So I finally found that, and it was like, oh my gosh, like this is what it feels like, to have people actually want to be around you. So when I was about 15, when I was 15, my dad died. He died very, very suddenly. And I, instead of sort of processing his death, in the, 12 steps of grief or 10 steps of grief, whatever the French toast it is, I dove headfirst into a quote non-denominational church, as they call it, non-denominational, but it was basically just like a fundamentalist church. And it was another one of those cases where I was just so desperate to find purpose in life after my dad died and find that sense of community, because I was in this totally different mindset after he died. I was just like, I need a change of scenery. I need something. So, started going to this new church, and I have one of my high school yearbooks right there, and I'm 90% sure, 100% sure actually, that is the high school yearbook that has a photo of me with black hair and like studded armbands and shit like that. I went through like an emo punk rock phase when I was like 15, 16. So don't ever let me dye my hair black again.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's your hair.
Then I just sort of like, I kept perpetually looking for changes, because I always craved that sort of novelty of people being excited to see me and people being like, oh my gosh, and just the general feeling of having friends. So I started going to a Baptist church for a little while. I think it was exclusively Baptist for, the rest of my duration of Christianity. So when I was about 17, started going to a Baptist church, and stayed there until I was probably about 20. When I was about 21, I started dating a guy who it's not you, I'm sorry. Why did I apologize to you for that?
Didn't work out, apparently.
No. I started dating a guy who actually identified as an atheist. And I hadn't really, other than my mother, I hadn't really met a lot of atheists. And my mom has a really good deconversion story, which I'll tell in a little bit. So I just sort of became very apathetic. I didn't really have that moment of, I need to look into this. I need to research this. I didn't really have the doubts in my faith and stuff like that. It was more, I just sort of stopped caring. Like, I was just like, I called myself an apatheist for a little while because I just did not give a shit. So when I was about 22, when I was like, I fully acknowledged that I no longer hold to the beliefs that I held to for a long time when I was a kid and, when I was in high school. So I finally was just like, I guess I'm agnostic because I don't know. And I didn't realize at the time, how belief claim, knowledge claim, whatever. So I officially, when I met my ex-husband when I was working at a grocery store, and he was like homeschool, home church, like humongous family. They were all fruit bat crackers nuts. Like, his mom would not go to doctors because she thought that they would like poison her, basically. She did not have a microwave in the house because she was convinced that she was convinced that, radiation would like just kill us all or something like that. So his family was a little weird. but I still like sort of tried to go to church. I didn't really identify with it. I didn't find the same sort of sense of pseudo fulfillment after I sort of started identifying as an atheist. I was really just doing it for the sake of like appeasing my ex-husband mostly. Whenever we got divorced is when I was finally like, okay, I'm going to look into, you know, belief structures, and I'm going to look into, you know, why I am currently thinking the way that I'm thinking. And I found the local atheist group down in Corpus Christi, because it's where I'm from. So it's really funny being an atheist in a town that is literally named the Body of Christ. So nobody is like, everybody like makes that joke. And I have a friend who's an atheist who's named Christian. So he's just like, I hate these jokes so much. I found this local atheist group, and they're the ones that really helped get me into, you know, analyzing stuff a lot better. And they got me thinking a lot more about it. So rather than just sort of being apathetic about it, it's when I was like, okay, this is genuinely the belief structure that I have, or the lack of belief structure that I have realistically. And I, you know, realized I had been, so when I was going to the Baptist church, I was very sort of like conservative, like listening to like Glenn Beck and Sean Hannity and Rush Limbaugh conservative. I was an asshole, humongous asshole. I hate 19-year-old Susan so much. But you know, when I sort of started examining a lot of things, I was like, okay, the political ideals of, you know, being a little more left-wing are more what I identify with now, because I didn't feel the pressure from people in the church to hold on to this sort of super conservative nature. Like I wasn't pressured into it. And I got really, really involved in reproductive justice stuff. I've done a lot of bowl-a-thon fundraisers for abortion funds, and I worked for Planned Parenthood for just over a year. I was just in accounting, but still, it was an amazing place to work. And I moved to Austin, and Austin was always kind of like the hub of like the atheist community of Austin and stuff like that, which I didn't really get involved in their stuff at all. Moved to DFW, and I found the Tarrant County Democratic Women's Club, which, you know how you'll find a bunch of like little blue-haired ladies at lunch together, like drinking wine and sort of sometimes being inappropriate with their waiter and stuff like that. Yeah, that was them. And I loved them. I absolutely loved them. So I got really involved with political stuff when I moved up to DFW. And I found a couple of the atheist groups in, you know, that were based in Arlington, and some of the ones that were in Dallas proper, and one of the ones that was in Fort Worth. So there was a protest that the Arlington-based ones, Metroplex Atheist, had advertised. They advertised it on like Reddit, on Facebook and stuff. And he had actually friended me on Facebook probably about a month or so before the protest.
I don't remember.
You did.
Okay.
Because you friended me first, because that's why I was all like, oh, I'm Susan, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I remember meeting you.
Yeah.
Got a photo.
Yeah. Photo that I'm in, not a photo with each other.
No. No, yep. I had a girlfriend, so.
Yeah, I had a boyfriend.
Yeah.
So this did not happen until those were both ended.
Yep.
So you say.
I swear.
Yeah.
I'm just messing.
Yeah. So when I was finally sort of able to, I guess, sort of find people that were very, very like-minded in that they really liked activism-related stuff and speaking out and being advocates
Mhm.
for, you know, those who may not have as loud of a voice as I do. I found a lot of the people, and I definitely found that in Nathaniel. So I'm very, very, very grateful for him.
Me too.
Yeah, and then we moved to Portland, and
Yeah.
it's pretty great up here.
Had a few. We had a few protests last year. We
Yeah.
protested Westboro, and then we also protested.
That's awesome. Good for you.
Yeah.
I had one guy. I was flipping him off in a photo. One guy was like, "Why are you flipping him off?" And I said,
It's like, why
"Do
not?
you know them?" He's like, "You're just like them." And I was like, "I don't think you know who they are."
Right.
And then we protested outside of NIFB, New Independent Fundamentalist Baptist
Yeah.
Church, just like Stephen Anderson's people.
Oh God. Yeah, he's
protested.
just
Yeah.
bad. Yeah.
Yeah, so protested those folks.
Yeah, we organized like a couple of the really. Our first protest was fairly small, not super small, but it was fairly small. We did them during June because it was Pride Month, because the
It was fine.
NIFB churches are very much like King James Bible.
Yeah.
Stone the gay people, stone the unruly children, and stone the adulterous women,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
no mention of the men that are
Yeah,
in the
men
dress
are
or
fine.
anything.
Yeah.
So
Thou shalt not be gayeth or love meneth or womeneth.
exactly. Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah.
We protested. Then we did it the next week, and we had more people protesting than they had people in the church.
Yeah.
So that was
We
really
did.
that's
great.
fantastic.
Great.
Yeah.
That's
great.
fantastic.
Yeah.
They were trying to go like there were two entrances, and they were trying to go around. So we put people at both entrances,
Yeah.
and it was great.
It was a lot of fun.
That was a ton of fun.
It helped that we are not super close friends, but friendly enough, friends with Aaron Ra.
Yeah.
So Aaron's got a big enough reach that he was able to,
Oh,
help
sweet.
us promote it
Absolutely.
and stuff like that.
That's
So
awesome. That's
he was
awesome.
he was at all that stuff. So it was really, really nice to have him there
Yeah,
with
it's
us.
it's ironic because out of all the atheist speakers, debaters, everything that I love to listen to, he is one of my girlfriend's favorites. She thinks
Oh, I
he's
love
one
him.
he's one of the most charismatic yet well spoken, but can still keep it simple without going over people's heads.
Yeah.
So she loves it. Now we don't really necessarily care for the Metallica gimmick he has going on, but
He has an aesthetic.
Yeah, it's a Nordic.
Yeah, it's what he does.
I'm just messing.
Yeah.
I respect the hell out of him.
I do
he's
too. I do.
amazing.
He is genuinely a very, very good person.
Yeah.
And
But
he's so like, some people are so intimidated by him, and I'm just like, Aaron Ra, like, he's gonna kill me if he ever hears me saying this. Aaron Ra is a fucking gigantic fucking teddy bear.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is.
Like that man.
You remember the protest?
I adore him. I really do.
Remember the protest when I got
Which
between
part?
him and Jonathan?
Oh
Shelley?
yeah.
I was like, Aaron. away.
Like Aaron was very much like, so the pastor at the NIFB church, his name was Jonathan Shelley. And Aaron was sort of like coming up and like talking to him, and they were getting closer and closer and closer. And he like got in between them, and he's just all like, "All right, no, we're gonna calm down now."
And I was like, Aaron, go over there.
Yeah.
We are not
time
here
out.
to talk to them.
Yeah.
Go. And it was like, yeah, it was pretty much what it was. And there's that video of me doing that too.
Yeah.
So I'm holding this huge pride flag.
Yeah.
And so I'm like keeping it in front of like their cameras and everything. So it's like the only thing they saw.
Yeah.
And I was like, Aaron, go over there. so you can see like me doing that, and Aaron looks at me. He's like in a huff.
It's like fun.
He's like, oh.
Yeah.
And it goes over there. And
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I absolutely adore Lalandra. Like his wife
she's great.
Lalandra is wonderful. She's like in her own right, she's just an amazing person. Like she is she's more introverted than Aaron is, but they balance each other out very, very well.
Yeah. It's funny.
Like she can sort of reel him in sometimes. She's a wonderful, wonderful person. She's so incredibly smart. So I'm like, I love her.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
Yeah, having the opportunity that actually being with Susan has really afforded me having the opportunity to meet and get to know a lot of these great folks. Obviously, Dillahunty sent her a friend request.
He did. Matt Dillahunty friend requested me on Facebook. I'm just saying.
Good for you. He's my hero.
So when I was still living back home and was involved with the atheist group, the Corpus Christi Atheists group, my friends and I ran a podcast called Atheist Airwaves.
Yeah.
And we had a live show that we did. It was actually, we just had the anniversary of it. It was 6 years ago, I believe. And we did a live show. We had Dillahunty come down and hang out with us and stuff. And it was a lot of fun just to like hang out with him and drink with him. And stuff. That was the first time I really met him.
I hope one day that I get to hopefully meet him or at least talk to him, because literally in my deconversion process. So you guys know I'm only a little over 2 years fresh out of all this, you know. And when I say he's my hero is he's the number one person that helped walk me through my deconversion process, even though he's never met me, you know. And spent hours listening to him talk and share his story and go through that. So I hope I hope one day that I get to, you know, it doesn't even have to be a conversation, just shake his hand and thank him for the impact. So
he'd like to hear that.
Yeah, he really would. Matt's a very, very nice person. If you are not on the receiving end of, you know, of
the brutality,
his wrath, as it were.
Finish him.
Exactly.
He's very unique in that way. It's unfortunate that other people try to emulate that. They don't do a very good job. They look for opportunities. For him, it's just a personality trait. But yeah, for us, like sit down and just chat with those folks, you know, like we do. And people are always like, "Oh man, you're going to, we're going to lunch, you know, and stuff like that." And so for us, that was always just it was always kind of odd to me when like people would like, "Oh, you know them?" Because we've just kind of like,
there's so many people that we've like had opportunities to meet and hang out with. And I think it helps that in the right setting, I'm very extroverted. After a little while, I sort of have to like recharge and get back in myself. And he's the same way. Like in the right setting, we're both very extroverted and we're both just sort of very open people in that sense. So we find ways to be able to relate to people. So it's
like me and me. That's how I get along really well with Paul Enns. Apologia, if you know his YouTube channel. He and I, we speak. We haven't spoken in a little bit now, but fairly often about, you know, like biblical stuff that's more like, you know, critical, actual scholarship and stuff. And so he's been a great guy for me for. You know, really just chat with, you know. And so it's, you know, part of the reason that we do what we do. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Trying to think of anything else interesting about me.
Oh, there's so much.
I don't know. I really love Star Wars.
So there's that.
So I gathered that.
I mean, and I've seen Parks and Rec probably about 20 times all the way through.
Okay.
That has nothing to do with atheism, but don't care.
That's how I am with The Office. But
hell yeah.
That's how I am with The League. If you've ever seen the show,
I haven't watched it yet. I need to watch that. I love Paul Scheer so much.
Well, hold on 1 second. Then you might want to take a gander at the Shiva.
Oh,
damn.
Wow.
You know how awkward that trip to Staples was? I need you to print out this picture of a little Indian girl. So
that was an Atheist Round Table exclusive.
Well, I love it.
Well, Susie, if you don't mind, I do have, and maybe this will help you even think of some other things that maybe you want to share, but just a few questions or points just from what you shared. So, so Methodist starting out, right?
Episcopalian, and then
Or
Methodist.
I'm sorry, I read the wrong page or wrong line. So raised Episcopalian, and at about 14 Methodist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then that is where you first really found that sense of, I guess, community or connection. Did I hear you correctly there? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and then your father passed away at 15. I'm sorry, that's a very young age for a young lady to lose her father. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I've actually gone longer now without him than with him. So it was like sort of coming upon that realization, I think like last year. I was just all like, oh wow, holy shit.
Yeah, I remember that.
And he was always the one that was like involved with all of our school stuff. And I was in band when I was in middle school and a couple of years in high school. So he was involved in like band boosters, and he did PTA stuff, and he knew all my teachers and everything like that. Like he was super, super involved. So whenever he died, it was sort of like, you know, my mom had to not really pick that up because I was just like, whatever, I'm just not going to do anything. Like, I'm just not going to do any extracurricular shit now. But you know, my mom and I had an opportunity after my dad died to become very close, and we never did. But so her deconversion story. It's very short and very sweet. I'm very to the point. So my mom was in the choir at the Episcopalian Church. She was super involved. She did a whole lot of stuff. I was an acolyte, so I was super involved with that stuff too. And she told me the story probably when I was about 25. She was sitting in the choir loft one day, and she's sitting there listening to the sermon, and she said that she just had this like light bulb go off over her head, and she was like, well, this is all bullshit, isn't it?
I wish it was that easy for everybody.
Right.
Thank you, Nathaniel. I was going to say the same thing. I wish it was that easy for everybody.
Right.
Yeah, I was scared of going to hell for like years.
Yeah,
that's still a thing for a lot of people.
I just told
so scared.
Tia, my girlfriend, we took a trip around this last weekend, and yes, during the quarantine we went somewhere that was still quarantined, but we took a trip, just the two of us, and that was part of what we were eating dinner, and I told her, I was like, for people that have never been indoctrinated and had hell shoved, like force fed down their mouth and made to eat and consume, you don't understand the fear of hell. You don't understand.
Yeah, so I'm going to cut you off and say that as probably the only person in the room who hasn't been touched by religion, you're right. That's the one thing I can't grasp, like that.
Yeah.
That concept. But anyway, I'm sorry. Go on. I just wanted to say you're absolutely right, Austin.
Yeah.
Because I can't grasp that concept at all.
It's this fear that's instilled from us. Yeah, that is why a lot of people are still Christians. It's this fear that's instilled in us from a very early age. You know, I know they do the whole thing with kids in Sunday school, and they teach, you know, like, you know, Noah's Ark and Jonah the whale and shit like that. But they don't. I mean, I guess they do. I don't know. Do they still teach that? I have no idea.
Yeah, they don't teach the way that apologists do.
Shit like that. Yep.
Shit like that. They teach it, you know, from this very sort of
sweet, innocent.
Yeah, it's very, very innocent, and you have to sort of lull kids into a false sense of security a lot of the time.
God did not wipe out the population, but let's move on.
Yeah. It's like there is nothing that does not make sense about this. This is all perfectly logical. But you know, when you start getting a little bit older, and I found it was probably when I was about the time I was going to the Methodist church. Because I read Case for Christ when I was 14. I was in a Bible study book club thing that was reading the Case for Christ.
Yeah.
So I read that when I was 14 years old. Not a great idea. But that's when they sort of ease into it. They ease into the fire and brimstone stuff, and basically telling you that you are unworthy, you are nothing without God, and you are,
Yeah.
you know, you're
Especially
just
women.
dirt. Yeah. And that's how it is so often in the church.
Filthy rags.
Yeah. And I've been fortunate enough that the churches that I've gone to, like Episcopalians, like I said, they're basically Catholicism light, but they actually allow women and gay people to preach, which was a big deal in the Episcopalian church. Like,
Yeah.
what was that, like 2010?
Yeah, pretty close. Yeah,
Something like that.
It was around the time that the first woman minister came out as a lesbian as well. So yeah, and then he had to try to excommunicate her, and she was like,
it's like, really?
So
Methodists have always been, you know, pretty friendly to women. And I know there's like a fracturing of the church that happened within the last year pertaining to a lot of stuff on LGBTQ rights. And then the fundamental church that I went to was, you know, the youth group was led by a woman. But funnily enough, that woman later went on to be charged for the murder of a foster child that she had.
What?
I haven't told you that story? Hannah Overton?
No.
I'll tell that story later.
See, I told you she had a more interesting story than I do. Jeez.
Wow, this turned into some like criminal Netflix shit.
Yeah, right? I do like My Favorite Murder. But it wasn't really until I got to the Baptist church that it was like, women are dirt, women are worth nothing, you know, we are less than the men at all times, we should just be subservient. And I was always like, I don't like that idea. I was like, I don't like that idea. I think I always sort of, you know, even through my conservative years, I was always sort of rebellious in the sense of like, I cussed even though I went to church. I'm sure Christian Nathaniel would not have liked me at all.
I really thought about it.
But I mean, I don't know. They ease you into the fire and brimstone stuff and you're going to hell and you suck, sort of thing. And then it just turns out that everything's just fear of hell.
Yep. Yeah. Like I said, I was telling Tia that it's until you've been gripped by that, there's just no way of explaining it to somebody. It's kind of its own psychological phenomena, you know, where you just can't explain it to somebody that hasn't been there. Period.
Right.
There's no other way to say it. So but no, it's it's its own phenomenon. So Susan, the one thing that stuck out to me, and it's funny because comparing, you know, because I always try to compare other people's stories to mine and mine to theirs, and where can we grow together, where can we help each other, just like I did with Nathaniel, and you know, especially with him going to AOG, Assemblies of God. There's tons of shit that him and I, you know, can talk about. But I come from a very abusive home, and a lot of people are like, hold on, you said your mom was in the ministry for 27 years. My dad was an usher.
They are not mutually exclusive.
Absolutely not. And as pretty as we looked on the outside, we were even more fucked up on the inside. You know, as far as what the four walls of our home, what it looked like. Yeah. And after, you know, I did not have a parent pass, but I had parents that weren't there. You know, that they were married, but they weren't present to make an impact or make an influence or anything like that. So part of what you've talked about, you know, as far as kind of seeking that relationship, that acceptance, that family dynamic, you know, within religion, within faith, I 100% can connect with that, because that's what I think that's the biggest thing I desired was for somebody to believe in me, somebody that was, like you said, that was excited to see me when they saw me, and all that. And can I tell you, the most heartbreaking thing for me is when I finally did deconvert and I left the church. The last church I was at for years, my brother pastors a pretty large church here in the city in Indiana that I'm in, and I played drums for him. I was in the youth ministry. I oversaw all the small groups for I don't remember how long. I helped with outreaches. I did all that. Can I tell you, when I deconverted and left the church, you know how many people reached out to me? Zero.
None. Yeah.
Zero. And that's when I realized, you know what? All these years I've been seeking out this acceptance and this family unit and this camaraderie and these bonds and these relationships that I thought I had.
Yeah.
Like if you would have told me that these people really don't care about you, I probably would have slapped a taste out of somebody's mouth. You know,
Yeah.
like no, these are my people. But then as soon as I deconverted and I just stopped going, still to this day. And shout out to Apostle Mike, because he always checks on me. He always checks on me to see how I'm doing. I love that man with all my heart.
That's awesome.
And I told him, you have officially, the first time he did it, I said, you have now officially reached out to me to see how I'm doing and check on me more than any Christian did that I went to church with. That I went for years. I've known you for a year.
Yeah.
So I share all that to then ask you, what was your experience with that? So obviously that's what you were seeking, you know, in the relationships that you did find when you decided, you know, that, okay, I'm deconverting, I'm pulling away from this, I'm detaching from this. Did you, did any of those relationships stick? Did they fade away? Did they just up and disappear like mine did? What did that look like for you?
There's a few people that I went to church with growing up, in my teenage years. There's a few people that I'm friends with on Facebook, and I think there's a few of those that are actually also atheists right now.
Okay.
But it's one of those, like, we'll like each other's photo or comment on something every once in a while, but that's really the extent of it. When I left, I wasn't really concerned about like needing to find or needing to fill that hole of community. When I started going to the Corpus Christi atheist stuff, that was where I found the community. And that's where I found the people that I am still active friends with to this day. Like my friend Christian that I mentioned earlier, he co-hosted Atheist Airwaves with me, and he and I talk on a regular basis. Like, he's in Missouri and I'm in Oregon. So it's like he and I will check on each other and just make sure, you know, we're doing okay. And you know, the friends that I have made since I've been an atheist have been much higher quality friends. And I think it's because we all understand what it's like to lose that community. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's a big reason why people stay in the church, even when they're questioning, or even when they're, you know, closet atheists. They're doing it, you know, to appease a spouse or a significant other or whatever, or they're doing it to appease their parents, you know, and they're also scared of losing what the church offers. So I'm a big proponent of like atheist communities.
Absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
finding like-minded people. And even if they're not entirely like-minded, you can at least, you know, have that bond over, you know, the lack of belief.
Yeah.
You have at least one thing in common, and you know that you have that thing in common.
Yep.
So
and I 100% agree with you. And then naturally other things will come up, you know, in conversation, just like we have tonight. And that's, I'm really excited because the first Sunday that I planned it is when here in Indiana is when everything fell apart because of the virus. I had the first Fort Wayne Atheist Network event planned, and then everything got shut down. So I can't wait to get out of this and do that because we don't have one here.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited because I'm really excited to start that and I already had tons of people respond to it because there is no such thing here, you know.
Right.
So very, very excited to do that. But that's that's Mike. Comments, questions. I want to make sure you jump. You're muted, brother.
Yeah, you're muted. Start that over.
Helps a little bit. Yeah, no, I'm good. I just more so got questions for for the why and the just end questions more so than anything.
Okay. All right. So Susan, thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that. And it's both of you. Obviously, we all have our own stories, independently as individuals. But any time that I can, and like Mike shared, his story's a little different, where he has not been inundated and been intoxicated on the Jesus juice.
Right. Yeah.
He hasn't had to walk through that, where we have, and we've had to find sobriety, from the Jesus juice. And so it's a little different conversation for the three of us, but I know come to the why, he's going to have plenty of questions, because that's his wheelhouse. So I'm excited for that. But I see you, Jesus. YOLO.
Hands are up.
All right, so guys, the final question, and like I said, once we're done with that, we will we'll plug and discuss your guys' podcast. I definitely want to do that, and we'll have some fun with that. But the most important question of the evening, and the most important question for the roundtable segments, is the why. Why are you at where you're at? What we talked about, the what. The reason I'm skipping the what is because we've already talked about it. That's already been part of the conversation. So again, whoever wants to take first at bat here, feel free. But now through childhood, teenage years, all the way up to where you're at now, we talked about the what, why. Well, and before I assume, I'm for the listeners, both of you identify as atheists, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so why, present day, why atheism? Why have you settled on that I'm an atheist and I lack the belief because of good evidence for a God? Why?
You want to go first? You want me to go first?
I'll
Go first. I was like, I'll go first. I can go first. I think a big reason why I am so public about my atheism, and a big reason why I finally came to the conclusion that I am an atheist, and this is what I have concluded about my thoughts on the existence of God, or a lack of existence, or whatever. A lot of it did have to do with evidence and a lack thereof, and a lack of, everybody talks about, you feel the Holy Spirit moving through you, and you feel at peace, and blah, 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 blah. And I never felt any of that. And I sort of went through the motions for a while and was like, well, maybe it'll get better. And then I was like, okay, it's not getting better. Like, it's not, I haven't figured stuff out. So I was like, I mean, if I'm not feeling anything, then there's no point in trying to feel anything in terms of God. So yeah, and that's sort of why I say that I was sort of an apatheist at first, because I just sort of stopped giving a shit about the going to church part, and the trying to find the answers. I stopped looking for something that I initially concluded probably wasn't there. And a big reason why I have been so vocal and open about being an atheist is because I know a lot of times you say the word atheist and people recoil in horror. people are like, oh my God, like what, how can you be an atheist? What, you know, how can you not believe in, you know, at least something? And it's like, I just don't. I didn't choose this. It is the conclusion that I came to. And if I could choose to believe in a God and believe that he exists and believe that eventually if I believe in him and Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior and whatever, and go to heaven, I would choose that, because that's much more comforting, even though it's a false sense of comfort, than the idea of just not existing when you die. But, you know, I don't know. I don't know what I was going for there. You get what I was going for?
Mhm.
Okay. That's what I was going for.
Sure.
Sure.
Nope. So what? Because not all, but most skeptics or atheists that I speak to have kind of that aha moment,
Mm-hmm.
Susan, and you know, I know I know I had mine where all of a sudden it was like, oh, hold on a minute.
Where you're sort of like,
there's snakes that talk. There's burning bushes that talk. Like we get to beat people and chop hands off and shit. Like, you know, like there's that aha moment. What do you remember that for you? Did you have that aha moment?
I think at first, like when I eventually was like, okay, I'm just gonna not bother going to church anymore. It wasn't so much an aha moment at that time, but I still have those aha moments every day. And especially being around Nathaniel, you know, and he knows I am knocking into stuff
No, that was
entirely.
me. That was me. Sorry.
Well, me too though. Being around Nathaniel every single day and being around somebody who knows so much of this stuff and knows, you know, so much about the Bible and knows what it says and is able to, you know, not interpret it in a theological manner, but interpret it in that, you know, this is, you know, these are things that don't make sense in it. I have those aha moments every day. And I'm fortunate that I get those, because there's some XKCD comic about like 10,000 people learn something new every day. So a lot of times I feel like every single day I am one of the lucky 10,000 that I get to learn something new about the stuff that I used to believe. So I get them every day.
Okay. And yeah, and I agree with you. Hopefully all of us are seeking those moments, whether it has to do with religion or life, relationships. You know, I think all of us should be seeking those moments. But do you have one clear, like
just that moment?
Was that pizza?
No, it's another present.
Yeah, I got another gift arrived today.
These were all supposed to be for Monday, for Star Wars Day.
Nathaniel's a boss.
He really is.
I have people. There are people that are jealous of our relationship, and I'm like, it's her fault. So
no, it's his fault. I don't know. I never had the moment of like Nathaniel did with. Sorry, I'm crabbing you. You know, like screaming at the sky, or like you did, Austin, of like screaming at the sky and being just all like, "What the hell?" I think the closest approximation, like the closest thing I can get to, was the first time I read Dr. Daryl Ray's The God Virus. So Dr. Ray is amazing. He's wonderful and I adore him. He wrote The God Virus and he wrote Sex and God. The God Virus is basically about like, you know, how religion can basically infect people's minds. And it's a lot of stuff that I hadn't really previously thought about because I wasn't far enough removed from, you know, still going to church and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the closest approximation is reading the God virus and being like, oh my God, this stuff does happen. This stuff is happening every day of people getting indoctrinated. I don't want to say brainwashed because I don't think it's the right term. But it's definitely indoctrination. It's for sure it's indoctrination, and it's so harmful.
Yep. It's programming. For the people that don't know the term, or I'm sorry, the word, the definition of indoctrination, and if you guys disagree with me, tell me. But when they're like, "What is that?" and I was like, "You're programmed."
Yeah, exactly.
You're programmed to believe what you believe.
Yeah, and I know Nathaniel has said this before, that a big reason why you believe what you believe is because of your product of your circumstances, basically, because of where you were born, because of the family you were born into, because of the time you were born in. Like if I was born, I don't know, 50 years previous to, prior to when I was actually born, because I was born 87. If I was born 50 years before that, I probably, my family, no, they'd still be Episcopalian because they were all Episcopalian. But, circumstances would just have been entirely different. If I was born in Indonesia, there's a 98% chance that I would be Muslim because 98% of the population of Indonesia is Muslim. Right? Okay. I was like, am I right?
That is correct.
Yeah. But yeah, we're just products of our circumstances, man.
No, I get it. And that's what I said. There's, obviously, you're good. You're good. Well, hold on. We're going to pause. We want to see what you got.
Yeah. I think this is what I think it is.
Yeah, she's gonna like this one more than the others.
I'm pretty sure I already know what this one is.
Then there's 2 more still.
Oh damn, 2 more.
No, not today. But I think there's definitely 2 more.
Nathaniel's a goddamn boss out here.
He really is. It is what I think it is.
Yeah.
So this one's a movie moment.
I told her about this one back when we pre-ordered it, I think in January or February, one of those.
This one's a movie moment. Let's see, there we go. Han Solo and Princess Leia.
Yep. No, I was about to say, now I see it. Yep.
It's with the I love you, I know.
Yeah,
we also have.
It's wrong.
You're using
this is my platypus mug. She got it for Christmas or for my birthday. It's my favorite animal.
It is his favorite. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But we have these mugs that say I love you on one and I know on the other.
Mm-hmm.
So we're always all like, wait a minute, which one do we use?
Yeah,
so
I never figured that out.
Back and forth.
Like who gets which? Like I should have the Leia mug, right?
Because it's being sent to you.
But then I'm also the Han Solo in a situation which this doesn't work out for me at all. But like which one should we literally? I think we put a poll on Twitter.
Again, it was 50-50.
Yeah, so then nobody else fucking knows either.
No.
So nobody helped.
Yeah, no.
No.
Yeah,
exactly.
this is the 40th anniversary. It's the same. I think the only one we don't have is the. We don't have.
Back. He's coming.
Yeah, and there's also the Han Solo and Carbonite, which is going to be here hopefully Monday, and then there's a Yoda outside of his house, and Darth Vader in his chamber.
Oh yeah, I'm excited for that one.
His little
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, those are a little more rare. So they're trying to find those has been fun. But yeah, these are always fun because they're she's like a little reaching out to him. Yeah. We actually have this by itself too, where she's wearing something else.
Yeah, that's from Cloud City.
Yeah, so we have
he's
all of
mooshed.
Yeah, I know. And look at the package is good.
I'm an in-box collector. I do not take them out of the box. The only
that's the only way they're worth anything.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, she's got a couple that are worth something too.
I have one of the first Funko Pop I ever bought was one of the first run Chewbacca's, which I took out of the box, and now I'm like, never doing that ever again.
Yep. She's also got the first run Darth Vader, which is the first one they made.
Well, I'm just going to say, after you two being on our show, I'm a little shitty with Mike right now as co-host that he has not got me anything.
But she
and that I can't open anything on fucking live video. Mike.
No, she
You're muted, Mike, because I know you're talking shit.
There, take it.
there. You go. But she's
Bottle cap. There you go.
yeah. Also,
He's like, this is how it's happening.
it was a chrome blue Chewbacca that I got.
Yeah.
I got you a Coke Zero. Here you go.
They made what 2,500 of those, I think.
Yeah, something
And
like that.
so she's got that, and that one you can find it for anywhere from like $500 to $900
Yeah.
online. So
Wow.
it's actually worth
It's a
money.
good one.
So that's
I love
interesting.
Chewbacca.
Yeah.
Obviously.
So I think there's only like one she doesn't have that was ever made. So
Yeah.
I think
That's
so.
awesome.
Yeah. Doing
Well,
it.
and real talk, I appreciate you guys doing that with us. I think that's awesome.
No, thank you for allowing us.
And I love seeing couples that are happy and fulfilled, and I'll watch that all day. So cool. So but Susan, thank you. You've shared a lot tonight, and we'll do a Q&A here in a minute if anybody wants to ask questions, but I appreciate you opening up and being transparent and honest with us and our listeners. Mike, is there anything you'd like to ask, or you want to get both of them done then ask?
Yeah, either way, whatever you think's best.
Just don't ask me about philosophy, please, because I know nothing about it.
No.
So I think for the why, I think we can actually go through both and then open up the four of us talking. I think that'd be best.
Okay.
Cool. All right. So Nathaniel, same question. We talked about, story, what happened, all that, identifying today as an atheist. Why are you at where you're at today?
I have always been an activist in some form or fashion, whether it was living out this thing where going and, preaching the gospel, if you want to call it that. And, I never knew anything about creationism, or somebody's got Samsung Intelligent Design, or I work for Samsung, so it was easy to figure out, or anything like that. So I never had that, by the way. It was never a thing. I remember one time at the church that I went to in Kansas City where the pastor actually, he said something about Noah's Ark, and thinking back on it, that's definitely what he was talking about.
Mhm.
Like, guy's definitely a young earth creationist, but I never it was never anything that, but today, the reason that I'm here with this is because I believe it's important. I believe it's important for people to know, to have the opportunity to have the conversation, and not the conversation that people try to get me to believe in God now, but rather the conversation about the why, and then learning. I consider, by the way, the people that peddle young earth creationist bullshit to be people that are abusing children. I consider it child abuse because it poisons the minds and stunts the mental growth of people who will save the environment and become the next mathematicians and scientists, and the people that will create the next pieces of medicine and actually advance not just humanity in particular, but actually so much more than that. And these people stunt their mental growth and make it so that they may never actually achieve those things. And I consider that the people that create this bullshit. I consider that, especially because of how much I've dealt with it, with science, and so having those conversations, so people actually know that there is actually science, that there isn't. But then also having the conversations with people, so that they know that first off, there's somebody that's willing to speak with them, but also because I think it's important that we can possess as much knowledge, that we do possess as much knowledge as we possibly can in order to make an informed opinion on a subject, and that people also understand that it's okay to be wrong, which I had to accept, obviously, for moving from evangelical fundamentalist into even like a movement away from that at all, that it's okay to set aside bias. In fact, it's imperative to do so. We have that conversation We had it this week.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, I want people to see also that it's not dogmatic. I'm not an atheist that's attack mode atheist. For the most part, there's sometimes I am, but I'm not. I'm very much a conversationalist, and I'm not usually trying to trap people. I'm not usually doing leading questions. I want to find out what somebody is thinking, what they believe, what that they stuff, and in this way, it's not a call in and get yelled at. I'm not specifically speaking of Matt or anything. In fact, quite the opposite right now. Because when they don't realize you're an atheist, they're assholes to you. That's wrong. And so for me, that's why I am doing it. I'm expanding and continuing to do that. Because it's a lot easier when we talk about those things. Like if I remember myself, you're like a couple of years ago, myself 10 years ago. If somebody would have told me that I'm delusional for believing in God, how would I have taken that? And yet we still see that today, and a lot. And I think that there's a better approach. And so the reason that there are people that should be protested.
Yes.
There are motherfuckers out there that that should know that, and that people around them should know who they are, and that the people around that they also know that we know the shit they're saying and the stuff they're doing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, most aren't like that. And so to have the conversation with those folks, I think is so vital. And that's what continues to help us to see more and more individuals and family groups that are moving away from this, we say far right, and I guess that doesn't mean anything political, evangelical fundamentalist, into more of this, at least wanting to study something and then getting into that liberal Christian mindset to where, well, maybe it's not all perfect, but it tells this message, and that's a good start. So,
no, Nathaniel, that was Pasta Mike in our private message. He said, "Preach, brother."
I saw it pop up, and I was like, oh yeah.
So he's here, and sometimes because of his work, he can't go on video. But I already gave him a shout out earlier. He wasn't on here, but Pasta is he's the godfather of the Atheist Round Table, and he's been helping us develop this and put it together. And we have mad love and appreciation for what he does. But we added him, even if it's audio. The Pasta Man. You have anything to ask or add?
Man, I was going to say some stuff, but Nathan just killed it, man. Golly.
Thanks, man.
He usually does.
I have a lot of conversations about this. So,
yeah.
Oh.
Yep, and I was saying if he might be working. Hold on, I'm checking the private message here.
Oh, okay. But no, I have this conversation.
I'm sorry. He actually said "fucking preach." Sorry,
yeah. But this is a conversation that I have a lot, and I have it with fundamentalists who are like what's his name? Music, right?
Music singer.
Yeah, music singer, right?
Oh boy.
The guy thinks that if you're not a Christian, you're not American. All right.
Yeah.
And
if you're not a Christian, what?
You're not an American.
Yeah.
He's
actually said that before.
That he's more American than I am because I'm an atheist.
Yeah.
And he holds some very, very, as you can imagine, extreme
and
positions.
Antiquated.
Oh, antiquated, some racist, sexist.
Yeah.
I don't think that he is intentionally being like that, but that's his mindset.
It's still happening.
Yeah.
So.
And but remember when you weren't actually there, but was talking to him one night, and he like, I don't know, like his back went out or something. And I was like, dude, are you okay? Do you need to go to the hospital? You need me to call you somebody? And he was, no, he ended up being okay. The last time I talked to him, last week, he took the time to thank me for that.
Yeah. He was like, you showed genuine concern, and I very much appreciate that.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I'm like, I don't want anybody to get coronavirus, so stop saying the president should get it, right? So seriously, and I believe that's we talk about secular humanism, guys. When you hope somebody gets coronavirus, you're pro death penalty, and and so I think I have those conversations all the time, and that's been a rant that I've had on our show a few times.
Yeah,
where I've been like, atheists, fucking stop it. Seriously, consider if you were a Christian, what this would have sounded like to you. And it's not that we're not wrong. It's not that we're wrong, but pardon it, Jesus Christ. It doesn't make any, and I think it's because I've gotten older. I don't know. And it's funny as I continue to go further left, and in Australia, I'm basically center.
Yeah.
But it's so vital. And I have conversations with people. Yep. Absolutely. There's people think I'm mad when I do that, which is funny. And
Nathaniel, just remember, all atheists are just angry, bitter, God and Christian hating motherfuckers. That's all we are.
Baby eaters too.
Baby eaters.
I forgot about baby eaters.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
That was amazing.
And that's actually for me. I not only do I piss off internet atheists when I'm like, no, Jesus definitely existed as a person, but I'm also like, I don't like Christopher Hitchens, and people are like, what? How can you not? And I'm like, I don't deal well with abrasiveness. It's not my shtick,
Yeah.
I don't disagree with his his opinion in the there's some that I certainly would. That's the point too. I think that's an issue too, where you can agree with somebody,
and they can still be a shitty person.
Yeah, well, no, it's like,
or they can be right and they're still a shitty person.
I don't like. She doesn't believe Jesus existed. I do.
I am not a hardline mythicist in that I cannot argue it. It's only,
but
I'm not convinced yet. But I
don't find it necessary to, because for me, like if I go into the minimal facts, I'll give you everything you want about the minimal facts. It's so much easier to show you why it's not true by just simply giving you all the toys that you want to play with.
Yeah, and that's like all the time when I talk about the resurrection and stuff like that. Like I grant, even in October, right? When I was debating with Dean Meadows up at Rogers State University, like he brought it up. Like we don't even know if Nathaniel is a mythicist, and I said, first off, we agreed in our pre-debate conversations that this wasn't even a point.
Yeah,
like, we
it wasn't a
did
Jesus exist thing.
Yeah.
That's an established thing in this debate, is that Jesus existed.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm going to grant everything. Like Jesus was a real person, died on the cross. These are things that I actually accept anyways, but I'm going to grant these things, even if I didn't believe them, for the sake of the supernatural shit. Let's get to that, And, but you'll notice that somehow we don't hate each other simply because we have a difference of opinion on something. And I think that is an issue as well.
I also think it helps that I'm not like a Richard Carrier mythicist. I just don't know how I just had
dishonest fuck,
like go down the wrong pipe.
It's not my fault. Exactly. It's not my fault he's dishonest, guys.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know.
So real quick, Mike, I want to zoom you right in on this, because what's happening right now, this is your wheelhouse, and I know, I know my strengths and weaknesses, and this is where you thrive, and I think the three of you kick guys here for a few minutes. So what I'm going to do is we've talked about the why, they shared their why. You know, I have some notes if I want to interject. I will, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to even for editing purposes for those watching live, I'm going to zoom in on your two screens and make sure it's focused on you two. And Mike, I want you to focus in on the why for both Susan and Nathaniel, now that we have both of them. And let's have a fun conversation about it, but not just fun, but informative for anybody that might be on that that line of jumping ship, so to speak.
Sure. Yeah, you guys want to get, or I'm sorry, Austin, you want to get more into the why in the sense of how we were on, or more into elements like the minimal facts and things like that?
No. Along lines that you're on. I just I wanted to highlight it to make sure that that you knew, number one, that I was going to minimize the screen down to you two. That way it's focused on you two. But keep going down the direction you're going. Everything that you two are saying right now,
Sure.
Especially from Susan and Nathaniel, that's exactly what theists, and especially theists, but atheists and brand new atheists need to hear. And I'm not even going to pretend to want to interject. I'm going to shut the fuck up and let you guys do what you do.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Just touch, I guess, since we're on the minimal facts, that's a easy one in that regard. What's the main reason why you don't have an issue kind of granting all those? Let me ask you: would you just grant all the minimal facts in your argument?
No,
you wouldn't. Okay,
no,
so that's,
no.
I guess that's where me and you might differ. Then, what would you not accept?
I don't accept that the minimal facts of resurrection, right?
Well, yeah, I'm talking about anything, the non-supernatural type of claim, just like, the tomb is empty, women.
The Lacona Habermas bullshit.
Sure.
Yeah, well, scholars don't actually accept that. Then I certainly don't either. In fact, this is a debate that I'm having in a couple of months regarding the disciples and the first apostles. One of the minimal facts arguments is that they were all either died or were willing to die for their faith. And I don't think that's, I know that we can say we don't have evidence they died. And also, how can you say that somebody's willing to die unless it happened?
Yeah, and then they say, why die for a lie things.
Yeah, and why die for a lie? Well, no, that's not, I mean, these people, people die for things they believe that they're wrong about all the time. I mean, think of like the Hale-Bopp comet, right?
9/11.
Yeah. That's become, as she mentioned yesterday or earlier today. No, it was last night. That's become the Godwin recently of like. I
was like, is there a Godwin for 9/11? Like a Godwin's law
it's
for 9/11?
It's always like that extreme position, you know.
Yeah.
And then, but Jesus, he died on the cross. Okay, I'll grant that one. And buried. He was put in a tomb. I don't know that I don't think we accept that. I don't accept that either. There's no evidence there was. I mean, Joseph of Arimathea likely didn't even exist. There's no way this guy went and, especially as part of the Sanhedrin, who voted unanimously to murder this fuck, apparently, went and actually gave him a tomb, which was it his tomb? Was there one that was next door, basically? Was there a new one? I mean, there's just, with that, I don't accept that one. I don't really care if women or men found it. That's not really important. And I don't think that the criterion of embarrassment, which is not actually a historical argument, we're talking about, at that point, we talk about criterion of dissimilarity. But anyways, no, basically from like 3 down, I don't necessarily accept them. But even if they were true and we did grant them, it doesn't mean that Jesus rose from the dead, and it doesn't.
I guess that's what I'm more so saying when I say accepting them.
Yeah, even if we did, it doesn't mean that Jesus rose from the dead, right? And we actually know the empty tomb didn't convince anybody. That's something that is obvious. Read the Gospels. None of them were convinced by an empty tomb. They all.
I guess for me, is that entirely not naturally possible? You know. So,
Yeah, and it's the same thing that we would say, right? Everything except for somebody rose from the dead.
Well, there was a guy we were having a discussion with at a some creationist thing. The guy with the hospital thing.
Oh God.
So he was a fairly recent convert, and he was talking about how he didn't believe in coincidences. He always believed that it was God. And he said his wife was pregnant, and she got assigned to on the 7th floor, the room 777 in a hospital that was at 7777 Forest Lane.
So
he
crazy.
was convinced that was God. Convinced. And I'm like, okay, so if there's a 7,000 block of Forest Lane, there's probably going to be a 7777.
Yeah.
If there's a 7th floor, and that's where maternity is, then there's probably going to be a room 777, depending on how they number it.
Yeah.
If they do 7s for the whole thing, there's probably going to be a 776 too. On the 6th floor, there might be a 666. Who knows?
Yeah.
But
yeah, no, it's
so convinced. He was like, it's not coincidence, it's God.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Like, literally.
We live in a world full of where these types of things happen. You know, it would be more miraculous if it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, there's I went into like probabilities too. When this is where indoctrination kind of kicks in, because this was like one of the last things I said to Dean in our first debate, which was like a year ago. I asked him if it's more probable that if a body is missing from a grave at all, history of the world, that the person resurrected, or that something else natural happened. And he said that this person rose from the grave. And I said, well, you and I have a different definition of this word then.
Yeah.
Probable. Yeah, because it's...
Well, what are you appealing to at that point? To say, that's my argument with it, which is that it's this kind of, I guess, abductive sense of, well, this all seems more plausible based on, you know, but the problem is, or let's say possible. Problem is that even if I was to say like aliens came down and took his body, or just some absolutely crazy natural explanation, it's still by definition more possible, because the supernatural explanation has never been demonstrated. We don't have anything that we would appeal to at that point to go, you know what, that could be a candidate explanation. Right. So you're really actually left, if you really are going with the abductive, I guess it would be abductive argument of this seems more plausible or possible. You would actually have to be consistent inside with you know, at least the null hypothesis of I don't know, but I can't be justified in saying supernatural, because what am I using to actually justify that?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And that's fair.
It's just like the God of the Gaps argument.
Well, and then you'll get somebody that will say, well, I can appeal to the resurrection, and now you're engaged in circular reasoning, and they're like, well, no, it's a God. And it's like, well, now you're engaged in special pleading, you know? Yeah. And then it's like, well, we don't know, you know? And it's like, well, now you're engaged in ignorance. And then it's like, well, I'm unwilling to look at natural explanations. It's like, well, now you have incredulity. So it's like you're just ticking off every fucking one as you go, you know?
Yeah, and that happens. And for me, it's easy enough for me at this point to just examine the evidence we have historically, and this, you know, and to look at natural progression of things. When we look at that, you know, over the course of time, what usually happens. I mean, people lionize John F. Kennedy today. He's apparently like on a coin, and they talk about, like, you know, the Bay of Pigs, talk about the, you know, Cuban Missile Crisis and all this great stuff he did. No, he's a shitty fucking president and a bad person. Like, the only reason that we even necessarily care about him is because he was like a war hero at PT 109 in World War II, and he was, you know, he was assassinated.
Arguably, I think it's more because he was assassinated than
but
the war hero thing.
Yeah, that's it. We lionize this person, and now we have like legendary stuff about him. You know,
People do like, so we lived in the DFW area, so we went, there was like, you can go to the place where JFK was shot, and they keep having to like, what, do they remove the X or do they keep replacing the X?
So there are two of them actually.
Yeah.
If you go on there and you turn off of like Main and go onto Houston Street, I think
so.
Which is where he was shot from the 6th floor. And there's two X's. There's one from the first one which missed, and then there's the X where on this, and it's on the street, in the middle of the street, and they put it. So people that are just citizens go there, they put the X's there. This is where he was actually shot, and then they can't be there because it's, you know, the city comes through and they don't know what it is. He put it, you know, and so the city all the time is picking them up.
Yeah.
And so then somebody else will go back out there and put them back down.
Yeah.
But all over there's these, you know, people that I was here, my friend was here, this person saw the guy on the grassy knoll, this person didn't see them, you know, and it just, this has only been since the 60s, right? It was 63. So we're talking, you know, with 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah.
This is the exact same thing that we get with the Gospels. And it's not to say that Jesus didn't die, it's because JFK did. But we have these things from people that were there, these flashbulb memories.
Yeah.
And yet they don't know what they saw last. They don't know who they saw where. There's, you know, some people don't remember if you know, Jackie went to the back of the car or not. And some people don't know if they drove up and went north on what is now 35. You know, there's just there, and they were all, if they were actually there, that we have that one too. And so it's not to say, this is the same thing with Jesus and the accounts. This is a lot of the same thing. Now, Jesus, I think, is probably a better person than JFK.
Probably.
I don't think he fucked around his wife a lot, but we still have those same types of things where they're lionized, this person, and then you have these people who are either not wanting to be wrong or more likely have, you know, like usually probably match, like, you know, bereavement type hallucinations. That makes the most sense to me.
Yeah.
And where they truly believe this stuff and they start to tell these stories about this stuff in a culture that has oral traditions, and they continue to go on and build this person in. Especially now you have, you know, Saul of Tarsus, and this person is going in and leaving Palestine and Syria and going up into like actual like Rome and stuff. And they begin to kind of have a different, like they coalesce together with their stories over the course of 300 years. And then that's when they start to take over and they start killing all the pagans and whatnot. Thanks Theodosius for that one. And so if anybody ever tells you why Christians, they did it because they were right. No, it's because Theodosius came in and made an edict that said you can't be pagan no more. And they said you can.
Don't they have a song about Theodosius?
Theodosia, yes, that's in Hamilton. So, but all of that stuff is compelling in a way that if you're in an area that's looking for a Messiah, looking for somebody to throw off the chains of Rome, which is why the Zealots fought against the Romans in 66. This is what you were looking for. And this is the idea of the person you were looking for. And it becomes easy for them at that point to tell the Sanhedrin to fuck off and then to move into something newer. They were still Jews for sure. But they're much like with JFK and much like even with like Pearl Harbor, you have different stories that come out of this, and you have these different sources that end up telling different people. And so none of them can agree on much of anything. So it's, why should I believe these, even if we grant everything that happened right there, there with these minimal facts, which I don't, but even if I did, there's literally no reason for me to assume that somebody rose from the dead and that they're still hanging out. Or did they ascend? I don't know. Not in Matthew. So, and definitely not in Mark, where they just ran away and didn't tell anybody. So it's interesting how it's defended so vociferously, and yet with less evidence than other mythologies that existed at the same time, very specifically Apollonius of Tyana. So.
Yep. No, and I was listening the whole time. I know I disappeared, but I had my headphones on the whole time. That was all that was fucking awesome. And I knew Mike and Nathaniel, that you two would vibe there. It was evenly. That's why I was like, I'm just going to bow out, because the three of them are hitting home runs, and I'm just going to do what they do. But what I want to do, so I'm all about respecting people's time. So I want to respect your guys' time, and also Mike is in the midst of his finals, and I want to make sure I respect his time and make sure he gets the rest that he needs so he can rock and roll with his finals. And just for the record, he's been kicking ass so far. I'm super fucking proud of him.
Nice.
He's been rocking it out, and still working hard with me to continue to build and develop this platform. So he's been a beast the last couple of weeks. So so what I want to do is, we won't jump into Q&As, but what I would like to say is, Susan, Nathaniel, if we can have you back on in the future, we'd love to have you back on. And get more into the Q&As, because I think the four of us could really rock that out on a Q&A basis. So what I want to end with, though, is I feel like I would, and I know Mike would say the same thing, but I feel like we would, as hosts, do you guys a complete disservice if we did not plug and talk about your guys' platform, Divine Disbelief, your YouTube channel. And you were very gracious enough to join us on our platform, so we want to make sure we highlight yours. So please, for us, and like I said, I've already checked out your guys' stuff. I loved, especially the last one about the Jesus story. Is kind of how I would say that. I loved it. I listened to that, and I really enjoyed it. And for the comedic relief, I enjoyed your voice going in and out.
Oh God, oh man, that was difficult for me.
He's like, my voice is going, and I'm just all like, you're fine, just power through it, you'll be okay.
It was tough.
And he kept chugging that coffee. But
as he still does.
And no, I did. I enjoyed it, and it was. I love a good podcast where you can get comedy, truth, and facts all in the same, all in the same episode. So you guys definitely provided that.
You should watch last week's with Hawkins.
Oh yeah, the one from not this week, but the week before.
Yeah, that
one was fun to produce.
Yeah, we have part 2 coming up on that one on Wednesday. But
okay, and I'm working through you guys' content. Like I love checking out people's stuff, so I'm working through it. But I don't want to take up any more time. Please, you guys, what I'd really like to hear for Mike and I and the listeners is what is Divine Disbelief? Why that name? Why that title? And what's your vision? What's the goal of that channel?
Well, he is always very quick to point out that I was the one that came up with the title Divine Disbelief. He wanted to do something with the JFC for the initials, like the acronym, I guess, for like Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah.
But I was all like, I don't know, I kind of like Divine Disbelief. And then like we had like a logo made up and stuff. And I've done the recent graphic work and everything. So that's my work. He brings the brains to this. He is the check out the big brain on Brad sort of thing.
I'm gonna get shot. Oh man,
it's gonna accidentally go off and you're gonna get killed in the back of the
car. It's Brad that gets shot in the back of the car, isn't it?
Yes,
No,
it is.
No, it's not.
I thought it was.
No,
it's Phil Lamar.
Yeah, because Brad gets shot.
It's a quarter pounder.
Yeah,
It's
it's
cheeseburger eating Yeah.
Yeah, he does.
Okay.
That is a tasty
My
burger.
bad. My bad. It's been a long time since I've seen Pulp Fiction.
That was again a really good Sam Jackson, and you missed it.
I'm sorry.
That's only one thing I can do with Sam Jackson, but go ahead.
It's okay. So we focus a lot on secular news and opinion. We try very hard to find news that is current and affects the secular community, because we find that so much of, Christianity and like Christian nationalism and just religion in general permeates through our culture in such a manner that it affects everything, especially these days. So much of what we find is affected very, very deeply by religion.
Yeah.
So we focus on things that are, of concern to the secular community. And, sometimes we have little light stories and stuff, like God Friended Me got canceled.
Good.
So
that was a
that's
shitty
always
show.
good. So that's a good thing.
Like,
Poor
ratings.
Yeah, apparently so. I don't
Good
know.
reason.
I don't know. But yeah, and then we started. So we took a little bit of a hiatus from it. So when we came back, we're all like, well, what do we want to do to sort of restructure things? So it used to be that we're focusing so much on news throughout the entire show, but now we're focusing on, we'll do a few news stories every week at the top of the show, and then do a deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
So his deep dives are usually biblically related.
In some form or fashion.
Yeah, mine have been sort of culture-wise. Mine so far have been on I did one on Paula White, who is awful.
I'm familiar.
Yeah,
She's a witch.
She is. I'm convinced. I'm
something.
convinced. I did one on the Christian music industry, which was fascinating to go into. So that's why whenever you were all like, yeah, we did the Christian music stuff, I was all like,
Yeah,
I can have this conversation.
If you ever want to talk, we could talk.
Yeah.
So much of it was like Campus Crusades for Christ
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I did like stuff in conversion therapy and things of that nature. So mine's more the cultural stuff. His is more of the intellectual stuff. We do book recommendations, channel recommendations.
Yeah, we have every once in a while. We started having the show with having guests on like once a week or so. What we decided to do when we came back with a different structure is to still want to be able to kind of do things like that, but to have it more spaced out.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, because there's only so many people you can bring on your show. And secondly, because of the way that we've gone to one show per week. And we basically put all of our previous stuff in Patreon. So whenever we get like a first, patron or something of that nature, which would be cool at some point, they can see all the rest of them. Like I think first 30 some odd. Yeah, you can see the evolution, And
my graphics were not very good.
And
they
now
just weren't.
she made this right here. Where's that right here? That she made that, yeah. And she basically makes all the graphics, all the like the sound and everything. We have she does all of that. I just
I'm the creativity side. He's the intellectual side. I
can't do all that. Like we go to like the Apocryphon and stuff. So the Gospel of Peter, the Gospel of the Infancy Gospel of James, which is really cool because it has like a Thanos type hand thing. And seriously,
fucking sick,
and things like that. And then went into we're doing this thing on Hawkins, Texas. So last week that was a good time, and that was when we moved it and evolved it, made a next step in our evolution as well with how it's going to look, how it's going to sound. And as we've moved on, we've created everything ourselves. We have figured things out on our own.
It's been rough.
Yeah,
you say it's been fun. I say it's been rough.
Fun in that terminology.
But that's the best way though.
Yeah.
And so now, of course, we have the premiere video that's coming up.
Eventually.
Yeah, it's been like a little over a month in the making. So LOL over and over again. So coming up with that has been a lot of fun. We have a lot of people we worked with to do some voice stuff in that one, and so it's been great to have such a great community as well. Yeah. And so we're over on YouTube. Just the channel name is Divine Disbelief. Also on Twitter, and I usually run that one. So I usually speak in the third person because it's both of us.
But it's usually him.
Usually it's me, and so you'll be able to. If I speak as like I and me, it's always me. We're on there and
on Facebook too.
Facebook, yeah, she does.
I run the Facebook one because
Yeah.
he doesn't have Facebook, so I run it.
No.
Okay.
Wow.
I'll make sure, because we have our Instagram and Twitter set up. You know, obviously Twitter, you guys know, but the Facebook, we're getting all that set up. So we'll make sure we connect with you guys, and you know, continue to help each other build. You know,
for sure.
There's power in community. You know,
exactly.
and each person's going to have their wheelhouse or their area of being a powerhouse, and we can only help each other.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that's my thing. And I know Mike, when I told him about what you guys were doing with your channel, he was like, "Oh man, that's exactly what I want to do." And I'm like, "That's exactly what I want to do." You know, it's just help, you know, cross promote, or you know, quote unquote, cross pollinate, you know, and help,
exactly.
help each other, you know. And there's plenty of people out there that need to hear the message. So, and again, whoever wants to answer this, I want one line, one sentence, however you want to distribute the message. I off camera, I'm a businessman, so I understand mission statements and, you know, value statements and you know, all those fancy things like people like to put together, right? To sound like they know what they're doing, but they are true. You know, that anytime you guys put time and effort and money into doing what you're doing, Mike and I and Pasta, you know, we put money into doing what we're doing and upgrading equipment. Like, we don't do this for shits and giggles, right? There's a purpose behind it. So if you had to give me a sentence or a statement, and she keeps pointing at you, Nathaniel, so I'll pick on you. If you had to give me a mission statement or a sentence for your channel, Divine Disbelief, what would that be?
You have the tagline, right?
I think it's basically what I led the description with.
Yeah, home for secular news and opinion.
Yeah,
that works.
That's the closest thing we got. Your home for secular news and your home for secular news and opinion.
Yeah.
Okay. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
A lot of people do stuff on like different topics. They do a lot of cultural stuff, but we've done.
Your home for the banana man.
No.
Yeah,
we don't talk about him.
It's the atheist nightmare.
Yeah.
No, and I love that, because the more people like you that we meet, and the more people like us that you meet, and we can all, you know, again, cross pollinate, the more people we reach, the more people we impact, the more people we can help. So each person, each channel is going to serve its purpose. And like I said, so far, the content and the material I've seen so far, I'm completely behind you guys, and I'll be pushing your channel. Is there anything that you guys would like to say before we wrap up?
Oh, it's every Wednesday at 5:30 Pacific.
Oh, thank you. I forgot that.
Yeah.
7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern.
Yeah. So again, for those listening that follow our channel, Wednesdays, what time?
5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern.
Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah.
That's the two
that's 8:30.
That's been fun.
So 8:30 Eastern time. So for those listening to us, you're used to 9. It's 8:30. It's 8:30 for Divine Disbelief.
Yeah.
Go check them out. And we'll tag them again on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram and Twitter and all that. And
all the things the kids are using these days.
Yeah.
But anything else you guys would like to say?
No, thank you so much for having us. And
thank you.
And Mike, keep killing it there with the finals and everything.
Yeah.
I know what that's like.
It's tiresome. That's all, really.
Yeah.
I'm excited to be able to sleep for a while once it's over.
As somebody who never sleeps, I understand. But
doesn't.
it's been, we really appreciate having us on.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
It's people always say, what do you want to, you want to put your picture, her picture? I'm like, no, it's always us.
Yeah.
So we really, really appreciate literally again the opportunity to converse and to, no matter the size of an audience, to share with people. And matters a lot to us. So thanks.
Yep. Well, and we, we'll trim out the XX parts, and this will be reposted, and so regardless, like you said, regardless of the audience tonight, this will be put on different platforms, and you guys shared a lot of information that other people need to hear. And real quick side point, Nathaniel, when you messaged me on our Discord and said, well, I need to talk to Susan before I commit to anything, as far as you guys doing it together, just so you know, I thought that was fucking badass.
She didn't know I said that.
Oh, babe.
But for real, man to man, I thought that was badass. That was your approach on that, and that you guys are, you see it as a collective, and that it's a team thing. I thought that was cool as shit. So just for the record, but no, you two, thanks for coming on. Mike, anything you want to say before we close?
No, just thank you guys for coming on, and hopefully we can get you in the Discord as well if you're not already. Conversation.
You should invite me to that.
No, I was in that Discord for a little bit, and then I met Freed Thinker Podcast, and he called me a bigot a lot, and you can trim this part.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, no, it's not about trimming it. I didn't. Were you Atheist Husker?
Yeah, it's me.
Oh, okay. I was really confused because there was someone on there called Christian Husker. I was like, I guess we have a troll in here.
So changed his name because he's also from Nebraska.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be tonight, but please, Nathaniel, message me about that, because I need to make sure that's addressed. So, but anyway,
just so you know, just for your sake, I mean, if you want, if it interests you, he debated the guy you're talking about. Since you guys said Matt, he debated Matt Dillahunty. It's on YouTube. Tyler Vila.
And he got destroyed.
Yeah, I remember that. Didn't work out for him.
He got destroyed.
So I mean, I'm not saying that as like, I'm just saying that in case you want to put like a name to the face, since you guys had a conversation.
Yeah,
he got destroyed.
Yeah,
that's just very, very satisfying to hear, though.
Well, we would always say that. But no, I was, and I was really, I was kind of upset that morning because I was, I just spoke with somebody and I was like, dude, does anybody moderate this? And at that, I was just like, nope, done.
Yeah, and we're just so you know, we are tightening up on that, because now that the atheists,
I'm a mod again, woo! So I can help you out.
now because we're all part of it, and now that the round table, is starting to grow and all that, we know that we need to moderate better. We need to be more involved. So hopefully you'll give us a second chance on that, and we will address that. If anything, I'll address it. But anyway, to get past all that, and you and I can talk. You and I can talk offline, so we can get past all that. But again, Susan, Nathaniel, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us tonight, sharing your stories. Where you've been, where you're at today. I think it's awesome. And for those that have watched tonight, thank you. Those that are watching in the future, I know we have a lot to watch later on. We appreciate it. And if you have any questions, you can contact any of us. And again, Divine Disbelief, you can find them, you can message them, and they'd be more than willing to talk to you about where they've been and where they're at, and any way they can help you. So in the meantime, we're going to sign off. Thank you very much. You guys are rock stars. Have a great weekend.
Yep.